Better watch out for that boy. Make things look easy. He'll blow your mind. But he'll blow your mind. Better watch out for that boy. Make things look easy. He'll blow your mind.
Now I don't know if this is available in your part of the world, but the film is on Amazon Prime. So if you want to see the whole film, it's there, but I don't know if you'll have access to it. I don't think Australia has it, but you guys might. So take a look, you'll find it there. If you have Prime, it might even be free. It is here in the US. So that's my big project. Now, apart from all my where are we? Let me just open something here for you so I can show it to you. Apart from all of my animation work, let me just show you some of the other stuff I do. Let me just get this open, because I had all these tabs open, and then when just before I was supposed to be here, my computer restarted itself. I had all these tabs open and then they closed. Oh wait, actually, is there one here? Oh, actually, let me just get it. It's going to be sitting right here. There we go. Restore all tabs. There we go. All right, where's that opening up? Down here. Give me a second. Just let me get what I need here. There we go. So apart from, let me share my screen again. Right here. Share. Apart from my animation work, I also make my own art pieces, and I do this a lot. I probably do this more than animation these days. I do a lot of sculpture. You can see here a lot of artwork. Let me just show you a few pieces here. So there's some drawings, some paintings. If I go further along here, let me find. This must have been open from something else I was showing some people. Here's some giant cardboard sculpture that I do. And then what else is here? Some fish. This is all Sculpey, which is a polymer clay. And that's the kind of stuff I do with my everyday life. Some fish. This is the stuff I kind of do more than anything else these days. And on top of, let me just show you the last few things. On top of my work for on short films and my own movies, I also did a bunch of work on, is this Song of the Sea? There we are. Let me find Song. Do you guys know Song of the Sea? It's a Cartoon Saloon film, Song of the Sea, which I will just play quickly like this. This is a trailer. You can look that up. I'm not going to play the whole thing. But if you haven't seen this beautiful movie, I recommend it highly. Did anyone see this one, Song of the Sea? It's a beautiful, beautiful film from Ireland, which I would recommend. What I'll do is I'll pop this trailer in the chat, and you guys can take a look at that when it shows up. And I also did a bunch of work on Wolf Walkers, which is Cartoon Saloon's most recent film that was nominated for an Oscar. Both these films were nominated for Oscars, but this is the one I had the most to do with. I did a lot of story work on this and a lot of design work. I helped design a lot of this forest stuff in the initial early stages of the film. And that's a beautiful film. If you haven't seen either of these, I recommend it highly. Song of the Sea from an Irish studio. So let me quit sharing for a second. Let me see if anyone has any questions before I went. Marwa has seen that film. That's good. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Marwa. It's a beautiful one. Both those films are just stunning. You'll actually, if you look and watch it, Song of the Sea, you'll find I'm actually in Song of the Sea. I put the director Tom in my Box Head and Roundhead film, and Tom put me in his Song of the Sea film. Alrighty. So let's talk about, does anyone have any questions before I go on about anything I've done in my career, anything that I know or anything I've done? You can chime in at any time. All clear, that's good. But if anyone has any questions at any stage, feel very comfortable asking me anything you got, because I'm here to tell you anything you want to know. All right, let us move on to, let's talk about animation principles. Okay, so has anyone heard of Disney's 9 Old Men? Is that something that's familiar to you? Just wave at me if you've heard of that. This is good for me, because what tends to happen here in America is that young American students are immersed in Disney information, which is fine, because I'm sure you guys have all seen plenty of Disney films. Everyone around the world has seen them. But what it tends to mean is that they have a very specific idea of what animation is. So let me tell you who the 9 Old Men were, just to fill you in, and let me tell you why we talk about the principles of animation, where that comes from, okay? So Walt Disney had a core of animators, and they were called the 9 Old Men. Now, frankly, there were a lot more than 9 of them, and there were some women too. But they were kind of like the 9 guys who really established the style of Disney animation. And the style of Disney animation, it's really, really important to remember, is only one of a million things in animation. The Disney style of animation is a very specific thing. You guys have all seen, I mean, who hasn't seen a Disney film here? I'm sure there's no one who's seen only one, right? I'm sure you've seen a bunch. And it's a very full style of animation, very gestural. The characters move very smoothly. And anyone who's, most of them, that's right. And anyone who's seen any CG films has seen that style of animation, because CG films lend themselves very much to that very fluid style of animation. Okay, if you've seen Zootopia or you've seen any of the Toy Story films, that is all in the tradition of that very full style of Disney animation. Very detailed, yes, that's right. So during the 70s, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, during the 70s into the 80s, the Disney animation studio nearly closed. I love Disney animation too, yes. The Caltha Cawthra. I'm going to have to massacre your names. I'm so sorry. If you're here to correct me, I'll take it. Animation was becoming less popular during the 70s and 80s, and they nearly closed the Disney animation studio, the animation studio, entirely. Now, mostly because they weren't making very good films. The guys who were running the studios had realized they were making a lot more money out of theme parks and rides and live action than were out of Disney. So their films were not very popular at the time. If anyone has got access to Disney Plus, you will find a documentary by Don Hahn called Waking Sleeping Beauty, which is about this period of time in Disney animation, which I highly recommend. Even if you don't love Disney animation, the films, this documentary is fascinating because it really talks about how the studio went from nearly being closed to the massive successes of Lion King, for example. So during this time, Ollie Johnston and Frank Thomas, 2 of Disney's 9 Old Men, wanted to write a book about how Disney did their animation, their particular style of animation. But because animation, even though Disney clearly doesn't understand it, yes, of course, Shaker, who wrote that comment, is saying something that is very clear with Disney films. Disney make what they like to think are a kind of broad multicultural films, but what they're making is hamburger films. So they're looking at a film like Aladdin and telling us it's the Middle East, without really recognizing that the Middle East is many, many different countries, and in fact, not India. They are looking at a film like Raya and saying this is a film about Southeast Asia, and not really noting that that is in fact 12 different countries. They're trying. What can I tell you? I'm not going to bitch about Disney animation here, but your comment, Shaker, is very accurate. But Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston wanted to make a film. That's right, Zainab. That's exactly correct. Wanted to make a film, write a book about Disney style of animation, but no one cared about it at the time. So what they did was they wrote a book about Disney, the history of Disney, and they kind of dribbled bits of their animation principles in it. So for the first time, what they had to do was look at how Disney animators made their films and break them down into neat categories, which they ended up calling the 12 principles of animation. I don't know if anyone who's interested in animation here knows that phrase, the 12 principles of animation. But animation schools love it. because it really means that you can take animation and break it down into 12 convenient categories that you can grade students on. You know that phrase, it's good. The fact is, most animation doesn't need all these principles. So even though there are 12 of them, today we're only going to talk about 4, because those are really the only important ones that we need to know. And frankly, when they wrote the book, they actually wrote 22 principles each. So there were 44. And they pared those down to, I think it's 12 or 13, depending on who you ask. And some of them are very specific to Disney, because Disney is very much an acting style. But then they don't fit for everything. If you look at, for example, some of the most famous films out of the Canadian Board of Film, very few of them grasp onto those 12 principles. They only use a few. So let us talk about 1, 2, 3, 4 of them, and I'll give a little demonstration of what they are. And then for those of you who have the ability, I don't know who here is carrying software, you don't need to tell me this now, but what we'll do is we'll look at these 4 that matter to us, and then we will start looking at some examples you guys can do sitting there. And then at any stage, you guys have any questions about anything at all, I will address them, because I know what it is like. When I was a kid growing up in Melbourne, Australia, I'm 46 now, so I was born in 1974. 1973? 74. I was born in 73. My God, I nearly forgot when I was born. I wanted to be in animation, but I had no idea how you were supposed to do that. There was no information. There was no internet, so you couldn't look stuff up, and there was no one to ask. So please, anyone has any questions at any stage, jump in and ask. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open my my software. I'm using Animate here, which is an Adobe product. And then I'm going to share my screen. And then we're going to talk about some of the principles that you guys need to know about. Where is Zoom got to? Is that there?
Elliot, hi.
Yeah.
So Amin is with us here this evening. Amin is going to go deep with Adobe Animate in the coming
cool.
3 days as well. So thank you for So let's have an introduction to Adobe Animate. Then Amin, he's here with us this night. He's going to explain more of like tools of Adobe Animate.
Sure, that's great. Well, I'll keep I'll talk about the principles, and I'll make the actual technical part of this very simple. I won't talk about that much at all then.
Thank you very much.
That's great. Okay, let me tell you, Cawthor or Cawthor, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Cawthor? Let me tell you the difference between Animate and After Effects very quickly. It's easy. Animate is for drawing and animating drawings. After Effects is a motion graphics package that is basically like Photoshop that animates. That's the easiest way to explain it. You can do character animation in After Effects, but it's a different type of animation. You're not drawing in After Effects. That's the main difference. So let me share my screen, and we'll talk about the principles here of animation that we need to know. Animate. Now, the important thing here to remember is, you know what? Let me do it this way, actually. Let me just share the entire desktop. That way, and you know what? What I'm going to do is I'm going to share Adobe Animate, but it means that I've only got one monitor here. If you have questions in the chat, I'm not going to know they're there. So if you put a question in the chat, maybe Mohammed could read that question out for me if I don't see it, okay?
Yeah, I think Elliot later will open 10 minutes for questions, I guess. It's better
sure. Okay.
to interrupt the workshop. So the last 5 or 10 minutes, let's just dedicate them for question and answers.
Not a problem. So let me go through these 1, 2, 3, 4 principles that we need to worry about. Okay, so let me share screen. All right, get my drawing here. Now, let me just make my mouse a little bigger, B for brush. It's a little small. All right, let me make my brush size bigger here. So I'm going to show you the principles that we need to worry about in animation. For you guys anyway. So let's talk about the first one, which is, let me write it down so you can see it. Timing and spacing. Let me put this down here. And I'll leave that there for the whole thing. Let's just lock that up. Okay, so let's look at timing and spacing. So let me beef a brush. There. Whoops. Layer here, stand by. There we go. So timing and spacing. Every single thing you look at in animation is timing and spacing. And what that means is how many drawings you do and where you put them. And the easiest way to explain it is this. Let me make my brush a little bigger so you can see. Here's my brush. All right, so here we go. Onion skinning on. Lots of drawings close together. And I'm going to just do a few drawings here. Lots of drawings close together mean that the object is moving slowly. So let me just draw these up for you. It'll just take a minute. So you can see here, I've got a thing called onion skinning on, which lets us see the previous drawings we've done. I'm going to drag that out so you can see. So you can probably see behind me, there's a trail of these drawings. So we're going to have lots of drawings close together, mean that the object is moving slowly. And that's for anything in animation, whatever you're doing. More drawings close together means that it's moving slowly. And I'm going to show you, as soon as I've done 1 second here, I will show you. And just for the record, I'm drawing on every second frame here. So each drawing is being used twice. Yeah, that's over a second. So let me just play this. And you'll see that even though I did all those drawings, it's going to move pretty slow. Yeah, it didn't move far, and it moved very slowly. Lots of drawings close together mean that the object is moving slowly. Let me show you the other side of that, which is lots of drawings, where are we, spaced further apart means that the object is moving quicker. So you'll see, as I put these drawings in, I'm spacing them much further apart now. And you'll see this is going to move much faster across the screen. I'm just going to do it to about there. Actually, let me just make it the same length as the other one, and you'll see. And the last one. So you'll see the ones at the bottom move much quicker than the ones on the top. Important thing to remember, as I said, let's drag that up for both of them. Lots of drawings close together means the object is moving slowly. So if you're animating a snail, you can have lots of drawings because it moves real slow. If you're drawing a character trying to walk through the mud, but the mud is very sticky, he's going to move slower. Character who's crawling in the sand, it's going to be moving slower. Down the bottom here, fewer drawings further apart means that it's moving faster. So this is running, this is a ball bouncing, all sorts of stuff, okay? What we'll do is we'll go through each of these principles. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 to show you. And then we will take our questions. How does that sound? So let me do another one here. I'm going to create a new template here. Next thing we'll look at is ease in and ease out. So stand by. Ease in and ease out. So the thing in animation you're always wanting to do is you don't want to replicate life. You're not copying life, because otherwise you just do live action, right? You just shoot it. You want to do the things that we're used to seeing in real life, but exaggerate them and what's the word? Simplify them. So ease in and out means this. Anytime we do a movement, unless we're a robot, right? Because robots move like this, whoop, 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 right? If we have a movement, that movement slowly gets faster as you reach forward. So if I'm going to, for example, lean forward and touch the camera, where is it? Right there. I'm going to lean forward and touch the camera. I'm going to start off slowly. It's going to get faster in the middle, and I'm going to slow down when I get to the end here. So it's going to go fast, slow, faster, and then slow down towards the end. If you think of a ball bouncing, which is always the second exercise, first exercise you do in animation, the ball slows down at the top and then bounces and gets faster and slower as it goes, right? It's the same principle. If you ever watch a movie that's got a camera pan like this, again, the camera starts off slow, speeds up, and slows down. So what I'm going to show you is an example of ease in and ease out that also incorporates timing and spacing that we just looked at. So I'm going to make my first drawing right here. There's my first drawing. Now what I'm going to do to start this off, these drawings are going to get incrementally further apart. And then towards the end of the movement, they're going to get incrementally closer together. Okay? So let me start off. My first drawing is in there. And then skin is on. So you'll see that I'm starting this out. These drawings are very close to one another. Almost imperceptibly close, actually. It's very close. And I'm very slowly starting to spread them out. Now, what animators you can often do is draw yourself a little guide, actually, which Emil, I think he said, might show you how to do at another stage. Yeah, I'm going to start to space these out a little more, and you'll start to feel, once I get to the end, there we go. Oops. Start to space these out a little more. Now you'll start to see now, these are actually spaced apart quite a bit. And I'm going to keep going to the... There we go. Now I'm going to space these apart even more now. There we go. And I'm going to take this to the other side. And then they're really flying now because these are really spaced apart, right? And then when I get to about here, I'm going to start to bring the drawings closer together. You can see I'm starting to make them closer together again. Again, I can't see your chat, so if anyone is actually saying anything, you're out of luck. And I'm going to start bringing them so close together, they're almost on top of each other now. And that'll do it. I reckon now let me show you the spacing on these. So you can see very close together, much further apart, closer together. So when I press play on this, you'll feel that it slowly gets faster in the middle, then slows down. And then slows down at the end there. We all feel that? Now, everything you do in life has that movement. If I reach up to scratch my nose, the same thing's going to happen. It's going to get slower as I lift up my hand, faster on the movement of the round, and then when it gets to my nose, it slows down again. You get on your... Oh, the way to explain it is if you're on a bike or you're in a car, when you put your foot on the accelerator, the car doesn't immediately leap to 60 miles per hour. It slowly gets faster, and then when you put your foot on the brake, the car slows down. Same with you're in the bus or on the train or anything like that. Speeds up, slows down. That's ease in and ease out. So what we've looked at so far is timing and spacing, which is this one here, which tells us that drawings that are closer together move slower and drawings that are further apart move faster. We've got ease in and ease out, which is what we use at the beginning and the ends of movements. And then we're going to look at now squash and stretch, which is one you've probably heard of. If you have any interest in animation, squash and stretch is probably one you've heard of. And it is going to incorporate the two other things we've looked at here. New. Just close the door because my family's just walked back in the house. 1 second. There's coffee there if you want it. All right, let me show you the second last thing, which is what I call it. Oh yeah, there squash and stretch. Stand by. Let me put this together for you. No, I'm using my second. Let me put this down here. Lock that layer, add a new one. Okay, let me show you squash and stretch. So this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the screen and my first drawing there. As before, I'm going to create a little ease in where it very incrementally gets further away from itself. And depending on how many of these drawings you do and how incremental you make that space is how quickly it's going to get speed up and slow down. It doesn't always have to be the same. Keep that in mind. So I'm going to start to speed him up around now. Now, squash and stretch tells us a few different things. Squash and stretch mostly tells us what is the object made of. So see how he's starting to get faster here? So I can space him out a little bit more. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stretch him out, which is going to give the impression that of speed. See those three big long drawings there? I'm cheating a little here. I'm not doing this entirely correctly. And then what I'm going to do is start to slow him down on the other side. So right around here. And then he's going to come to a halt in just a second. So squash and stretch is the bit in the middle that you all saw then. And let me just add a few more just to make that easy and work nicely. Now you'll see squash and stretch all over animation. Anyone who's seen the Roadrunner run away, the coyote fall off a cliff, Bugs Bunny get bopped on the head by something, you've all seen squash and stretch. So let me see it here. See how that feels like it's zipping across the screen fast? We cheated there. It's kind of like creating a blur almost. And that's squash and stretch. Now, we'll talk about one last bit of animation. Slows down, speeds up, slows down. Last one we'll talk about. Let's talk about straight ahead. Now, straight ahead animation is basically when you sit down and just do one drawing after the other, like what we've been doing today, actually. Has anyone ever got a textbook and made a little flip book out of Post-it notes or on the corners of your textbooks? You flip through. Has anyone ever done that? I can't see your answers. Let's assume some of you are saying yes. This is straight ahead animation, where you basically just do one drawing after another. And it's very freeing and fun because it's easy to do. You don't have to worry about planning anything. And you can just jump in and see what happens. And I'm not going to do the whole thing because I'll be here forever. But one of the assignments I always set in my classes is this assignment here, which is a fly that flies around the screen. And you can do that with dots. And it's very easy to do. And I'm just making this up as I go. And you know, you can, if you want, you can start to add some squash and stretch. And like this, I'm going to just do very quickly. I'm not going to do all the whole screen here, but you'll see what I mean. This is straight ahead animation. Oops. Slow them down there, and let's just have a quick look at that. You'll see, and I just play with that straight ahead. So you can just go through all day drawing little dots around your screen, right? Now, when you're doing character animation, it's best not to be that loose about things, because the problem with working in straight ahead means that there's no direction. It's very hard to plan what you're going to do. So most animation you have ever seen is done in what's called keyframes. Is that something that anyone here has heard of, keyframe animation? I'm going to draw my examples this time. So for example, if I am going to, let me just make my brush small. Let me make it even smaller still. Go. That'll do. All right, so here I've got a, let me just do something quick and rough here. Hi, here's my character. He's not very good, but it'll be good for the purposes of this. If I'm going to make this character get a fright, for example, and fall down, I would do what's called keyframes. Now, the keyframes are the storytelling drawings. Those are the main drawings. And what they're doing is letting us plan the animation without having to do every single drawing straight away. So just say that's my first drawing, and this is going to be very rough. Let's assume that at 2 seconds, this guy is going to notice something from off screen. So he's going to look this way a little bit. Let me draw his body in. Turn around a little. Put his hand down a bit. So he's going to go from this pose to this pose. And then let's assume that he's going to get a shock at about 3 seconds. So he's going to be like, right, so he's looking shocked. Let's quickly look at this. So, and then he's like, what? Ah! And then maybe he's so shocked, again, I'm just making this up as I go, obviously, that he faints on the floor. So let's put a drawing in here where he's like starting to faint. Oops. And then lastly, he lands on the floor. Splat, okay? And you'd always do this little drawing in here as well if you're doing keyframes, where he'd be like, oops, sorry, do that actually. Where he'd be like, his eyes are closed, and then you'd add a little bump in here, because that would be part of the keyframes, where he hits the ground and bumps a little, like that. We'll just copy this one. Copy the frames. Paste frames. So let's quickly look at this, what we've done here. So he goes, what? Ah, whoop, ba-dum, falls down. Now this tells us, we now know that if we've got a drawing on 2 seconds and a drawing on 3 seconds, we probably need how many drawings to go in between those two drawings. So if the audience gets to see him for a bit, let's put a keyframe there. And we need to know he's going to have to match there. So let's pull him down to here. Bend his knees down. This is very rough and rubbishy, obviously. And we're going to squash him down even more, because that's going to help it make it feel like he's really jumping up. And then we'll do a little ease in. Oops, to this pose here. Oops. And let's put one right in there before he eases up entirely. So this is pretty bad animation, but hopefully you'll get an idea of what I'm talking about here. So now we put those drawings in, we can see he goes, turns, and then goes, ah, right. Does that make sense? Probably that one needs to go there. That one needs to go there. Let's take a look at that again. So there'd be a couple of drawings in between there. Then he gets his shock, and then he falls down, splat. So that helps us plan the animation, so we know how long it's going to take to do. We know how it's supposed to look. So those are the 4 principles you guys need to worry about the most. Squash and stretch, straight ahead or pose to pose, ease in and ease out, and timing and spacing. So I'm going to stop sharing and let us. Questions, what can I tell you guys? Either put it in the chat or speak out, it's up to you. And that was a lot of new information, especially if no one has ever done animation before. But
yeah,
now
so if you have any questions, but you don't speak English, you can write in Arabic and I can translate to Mr. Elliot. Okay,
yes,
it's fine.
Yeah. Yes, please.
اللي يبي افتح له الصوت خلي رفع يده. Okay.
It was a lot of info. The convenient thing is, almost everything I'm telling you now, you will find on YouTube. There are hundreds of these tutorials on YouTube. How many softwares do we use to produce animation? What are they? Okay. At the moment in the world, there are 3 main packages. That's for Abra, right? Abra. 3 main packages. That was Adobe Animate. Adobe Animate is what used to be called Flash, which is something you may have heard of. So Flash is now Adobe Animate. The other package that is well used is called Toon Boom, which is also a storyboarding package and is very common. I've only used that a bit. And thirdly, the most common one, mostly in Europe, is a package called TV Paint. And TV Paint does a very nice job of replicating real life animation tools. So if anyone saw Wolf Walkers, that was done in TV Paint. If anyone saw Ernest and Celestine, which is a French animated film, that was done in TV Paint, sort of watercolor look. Most European 2D programs are being done in TV Paint. I've never used it. My students all love it. But there are no studios in the US really using it. In the video I sent, there was an image. You usually use collage. I use all sorts of, that was for Dalal. No, sorry, no, it was for Zainab. I use all sorts of different stuff for my animation, all kinds of different stuff. I use a lot of, sometimes if I'm pressed for time, I'll use some collage because it means I don't have to draw every single asset. Dalal asked, what is the program that I'm using for drawing? The animation I just showed you is TV Paint, but I do a lot of drawing in Procreate on my iPad and Photoshop. What do I think of Clip Studio Paint? This is for Safa. I do not know a lot about it, but there are no studios using Clip Studio Paint. If you are learning to use animation and you have it and you don't have to buy it, it's probably a good thing to use to learn to do some animation, but it is not a studio used piece of software. Mahmoud says, do you use storyboard to planning for the illustration or other technique? Yes, I do a lot of storyboarding work. I recommend, if you want to do character animation, everything I just showed you today, I just kind of like threw in. But if you are going to do character animation, it is a very smart idea to plan what your characters are doing before they do it. Now, you've probably all seen videos of Pixar animators working and stuff like that. Those guys are all filming themselves. They're all doing lots of little thumbnails. They're all planning their performances before they are doing any animation. When you're young and working on films, it's fun just to jump in and see what happens. But when you're working for a studio, you're working on a big job, planning for animation is always important, because the one thing you don't want to do is a lot of work that doesn't get used. So planning is important. What tools did I use at the beginning? In the film, this is for Bahrain. The short that I sent you, my boxing around head short, that was actually done in Animate. Sorry, that was done in After Effects, because that's mostly just things moving around. I'm not drawing anything there. What tools did I use at the beginning? I answered that. Zainab asks, I do a lot of, the difference between animating in Procreate and animating Adobe Animate, sorry, in Procreate and Animate. Animate has given you a timeline that is specifically designed to plan and work animation. The animation in Procreate is handy to play around with and to tinker with, but it is not designed for full-time animation use. So I do a little animation in Procreate too, and it's actually a really good place to practice. The drawing tools in Procreate, many times better than they are in Animate, for example. The drawing tools in Animate are not great. You've got to learn how to work them. But that's the main difference. Procreate is designed for illustration that lets you do some animation, whereas Animate is designed to let you do some actual full-on animation. It also works with vectors, so the files are small. The animation files out of Procreate are quite large. Best way to practice movement in animation. Simple. Practice bouncing balls. Bouncing balls is like the first assignment you'll get in any animation class. It's the best way to teach you all of your principles. The first assignment I always give students is, I showed you that dot flying around. I call it a fly. If you don't have a Wacom and you just have a mouse, it's the best thing to use because you can just click dots and you can practice timing and spacing. You can practice some squash and stretch, and you can practice ease in and ease out pretty easy just with clicking a mouse and doing flies, because it means you don't have to draw any technical characters at all. Mohammed, go ahead. I think you have to say something.
Yeah, thank you, Elliot. So can we get to know more about like the rest of the principles of 2D animation? I think we have time for more principles, if you don't mind.
I don't mind. Let's talk about, okay, let's talk about two others. Let me write them down before I forget them. Let's do follow through. Let's do arcs. So Yusuf says, do you need a Wacom tablet? You need a Wacom tablet unfortunately, if you want to do character animation, you will totally need a Wacom tablet or a drawing tool. If you don't plan on doing animation, you just want to animate some bouncing balls and some flies or some abstract shapes, a mouse is fine. I teach an intro to animation class at Queen's College, and I've specifically designed it so you don't have to have a Wacom tablet, because I don't want students spending a couple $100 on a piece of hardware they don't need. But if you want to be in animation, you want to really start playing with it, you will need a tablet of some kind. I'm just going to quickly Google something so I don't forget. So make sure I'm not missing something out. I had all these open before my computer went to sleep, by the way. Principles of, because most of these are not actually that relevant. All right, here we go. Let me have a quick look here. Let me just make sure I'm giving you everything here. Give you that one, I'll give you that one. And let's do that one there. Okay, I got 3 more I can show you. All right, let's talk about arcs. So let me share up again. What is the best Wacom tablet? The best one is the one you can afford. Yusuf.
Elliot, someone asks,
yes.
Can they animate using iPad?
Yes. Procreate has an animation tool, which someone else had mentioned. I can't remember who it was. Also, you'll find if you want to play with stop motion, there's a lot of very cheap stop motion tools on the iPad too, which are fun to play with. Yeah. In your movie, the characters are very active and amazing. Can you tell us a bit about the process to have smooth active animation? Yes, Abra. Everything that I did my animation for in my films is exactly what I'm showing you now. I've just been doing it for a long time, and I know how to make it look good. So the difference between showing you here and you doing it and me doing it is 25 years of animation. It's just not going to take you 25 years, but Abra, it's really just practice, and me have been doing it a long time. That's the main difference there. That is the only difference between what I'm showing you now and not. So let me go to back to animate. Right, let me share my screen. Let's talk about, I'm going to write it down because I find with my students, they often don't know what word I'm saying in because of my accent. So let me show you what we're going to look at next. And then I'll tell you what it is. The word is, I say it. I say arcs. Americans say arcs. I don't know what you guys say with your accent. Probably more like me. Arcs. Mohammed, how do you say that?
So just arcs. Yeah, it's like the Arabic
And
accent.
arc is, right, right. And the word arc is from the word arch, obviously. Right, arch. Okay, let me show you why these are important in animation. And we're going to do a, I'll use an example using one of the earliest animation assignments you're ever going to get. Just let me make my brush a little bigger here. So this is a bouncing ball. We'll actually incorporate some other things in here. So I'm going to do a bouncing ball. And what I'm going to do is use keyframes to plot where the bouncing ball is. I'm going to use squash and stretch to make the ball feel like it's bouncing. I'm going to use ease in and ease out because that's going to make it feel like it's got some weight to it. And then I'm going to add these elements of arcs, A-R-C-S, arcs. So the first thing I'm going to do is put my keyframes in. So I'm going to put in my main animation drawings. So this is my first one. I'm going to go to 1 second and I'm going to put in my next one. Spinning so I can see what my next one is. And I'm going to squash this drawing flat. Now I'm cheating a little with the squash and stretch here because I don't want to change my brush size. So let me explain one thing about squash and stretch. With squash and stretch, when you use it, you have to think of your object as being like a water balloon. We know what a water balloon is? It's like a water, you fill it with water, you throw it at your friends. I'm assuming you guys have something similar to that. Or perhaps you guys value water more than me. But you have to think of squash and stretch like a water balloon. If you grab a water balloon and you stretch it out, it will change size, but not volume. So this remains the same volume of water in the water balloon, but it just changes shape. And it's the same with squash and stretch. It doesn't work if you change the volume of the object. Now, what I've done here does change the volume of the object. That's because normally I would draw this with my pen and I would change the size of this to match, but I'm being lazy because it's quicker to do it this way. So just keep in mind, if you're going to play with squash and stretch, that if you've got a ball this size, if it stretches, let me show you actually, it's probably going to be more like this when it hits the ground, okay? I don't know, just keep doing it. So there's my first drawing, there's my second drawing. I'm going to pop one in about 50 frames here, which is going to go up here. I'm going to put another one down here, which is another stretched drawing. These all flattened out. I'm going to put another one up here. And you'll notice these keyframe drawings are getting lower and closer together because as the ball loses energy, it gets slower, which means it's getting closer together, right? So here's all my drawings. Let me show you all of them. I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 keyframe drawings. And what I'm going to do now is use my ease in and ease out to do my in-betweens. So I'm going to assume, let's go down here. I'm going to start putting my in-betweens in here. So I'm going to put a drawing in here. I'm going to put one in here. I'm going to start to space these out now. And I'm also going to start to stretch it out. So you can see I haven't done a very good arc, but there's an arc right in there. Okay, and when I'm going to drag him back because my timing wasn't so great there. But let's just take a quick look at what we got here. So the ball falls down, boing. Probably too fast. Probably needs a few more drawings in there, but for the purposes of this, we'll keep going. When he bounces up again, It's going to go a little slower off the ground. So I'm going to make him come up like this. And then he's going to get faster as he goes up. And then when he gets to the top of that arc, he's going to slow down again, because we always slow down at the top of the arc. So those drawings now become closer together. The more drawings you have closer together, the slower he's going to go. So he is slowed down, and we're going to speed him up again as he gets down here. So I'm going to start to speed him up. Oops. And he's going to hit the ground there. And then let's just take a look at what we got here. So that is arcs. Oops. Let's take a look at what we got here. Boing, boing. You see that feeling now? The drawings that are closer together at the top of the arc make it slow down. The drawings that are further apart make him speed up. And what I'll do is, just because that's going quite nicely, I'll actually finish this bouncing ball so you guys can see it. Doink. Finish to the end. Okay, so let me take this guy. My timing wasn't very good when I set this up, but we can finish this. So put a 1 in there. And again, this is pretty sloppy, but I think you guys get the point. Oops. Go a little fast here, but let's slow them down on the way down. That'll do. Let's take a look at what we got here. Let's take a look. Boing, boing, boing. Oh, there's a mistake there. What do we got here? Flash frame. What is this? How'd that get in there? Let's fix that, shall we? Okay, let's try that again, shall we? Boing, boing, boing. And we can feel that's got some weight to it. And the weight comes from the squash and stretch and from the ease in and the ease out. Bouncy balls, one of the first things, first animation assignments anyone ever does. That tells you everything you need to know. Boing. So that's, and the arcs, as we can see, if I turn on my onion skinning, these are the arcs along here. Boing, boing, boing. Everything in animation works in arcs. Everything in life works in arcs. If you go to scratch your nose, you rarely just go, whoop. You usually reach over a little bit and do it. In animation, you're always looking for arcs to put in there to make it feel natural. Because again, we're not trying to replicate real life. We're just trying to make it feel natural and believable. So that is arcs. Let's talk about next follow through. Let's do follow through. New. Now, the example I'll create, let me have a quick think. Oh, I'll show you the example we'll create. Let me draw it in for you. So follow through means this. If you are walking along, let me think of an example. If you've got long hair and you're walking along and you come to a halt, your hair keeps going forward before it comes to a halt. Does that make sense? Or if you have a dog and the dog is running along and the dog comes to a halt, the dog's ears are going to flop forward before they stop. Or if you're wearing a long dress, you're walking along and you stop moving, your dress is going to keep going forward before it comes backwards. Anyone who has been on an elevator knows the feeling of when the elevator starts, you go like this, boing. And when the elevator stops, you do the same thing. It's the same principle. It's inertia. You're standing on a bus and the bus stops and you keep going forward. That is inertia. It's the same thing. So follow through in animation is, again, just creating a piece of movement to make it feel more realistic. So here, let me just create a very quick example. Here's a little dot with a blob on top. And let's just put in one over here. Put my onion skinning on. So this is follow through. So let's go stop here. I'm doing a very rough version of this for you guys. Oops. Very, very rough. All right, and then we'll pop it a few in betweens here. So he's gonna there. Oops. That. And then we'll put one here. Like this. Okay, we're doing pretty rough here. And then one more here. That can actually go in there like that. And then let me just drag this stuff back here. So pretty much got it. One in here. Let's take a look at this. Now, what we're looking at here is follow through, which is the end of the energy of this little antenna. Let's just take a quick look at that. See how that plays out. Right, that is follow through. If you are Superman and you're flying along and you stop, your cape is going to fly forward a little. If you're a dog with floppy ears, that's follow through. And you're going to see that in animation all the time. It's one of those little touches that make animation look like it's working. You'll notice characters often stop and their arms will move forward like this. You see a lot of it in CG because it's easier to do in CG because you can just, Toy Story can just program the characters to do that. One more look at this. Boing. That actually turned out better than I thought it was going to. I did it pretty quick. There's a missing ball here. Let's take a look again without the missing bit. And lastly, let's talk about exaggeration, which seems pretty clear, but let's do it anyway. So in exaggeration, has anyone heard of the expression pantomime before? You know what that means, pantomime? Okay, for those who don't, let me give a brief explanation. Anyone heard of Charlie Chaplin? Who Charlie Chaplin is, Buster Keaton? These are all silent movie stars. And they were playing in their style of acting on a technique called pantomime, which is a mixture of the word mime, and I know where the panto comes from, to be honest. But basically what actors were doing were exaggerating all their movements to make it clear what was going on. So if Charlie Chaplin was sad, he'd be like this. Very, what's the word? Very energetic and very exaggerated. If Charlie Chaplin's going to laugh at something, he's going to go, ha, 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 ha. And we're basically looking for the same thing in animation because we really want to make all the movements clear. So for example, unless you're working with very subtle animation, which you don't see that much of, if we have a character who's sad, right? That's pretty tame. But if we push it even further, turn his ears up, put some more tears in, and we give him a runny nose, we'll make him even more sad. That is the sort of thing we like to see in animation, because we're pushing all the, we're exaggerating everything. Exaggeration is a big deal. If, for example, we have a character who is happy, I mean, that's happy, that's fine. But if you really want to make him happy, let's get his mouth open. Let's give him some teeth to see. Give him some eyebrows. Hi, everyone. We're going to make him really happy. That's some of the things we really want to see in animation, is exaggerating all the movements. And it's the same even with actual movement, because, for example, if you want to, let me do a new one here. So here we have a character. He's standing here, minding his own business. He's very happy. And then let's get him bashed on the side of the head by something. Let's press 1. Oops. So then we're gonna really exaggerate this hit here. Oops. So I'm really exaggerating this now. It's pretty rough, but if we look at this, and I'm just going to put the ball on another layer here. Let me just make that red. Oops. So we can see. Let's have 1, 2, 3. Let's just bring that back a little bit, obviously. Remove, and then let's go to, oops, here, then here, and here. And we'll just make the ball bounce away. You can see that by exaggerating this, we get more of an impact on the character. Boom. That's pretty violent. So those are the main things: squash and stretch, straight ahead, ease in, ease out, timing, spacing, follow through, arcs, and exaggeration. Now, there are others if you look at the Disney list, but most of them are not going to really make a lot of difference to what you're doing. So you don't necessarily need to embrace those guys quite so much. So we've got another 10 minutes, yes? Let's
thank you very much. It's time for questions now. Any questions, guys? You can ask Elliot.
What do you got for me, guys?
If anyone has a question and they want to ask using the mic, just let me know, please. Let me know.
Yeah.
Raise your hand and let me know. Yeah.
Rich and clear. I like to hear that. Thank you, Fatima. Oh, here's somebody. Hussein has something to say. Yes, you can. Unmute yourself. Okay. Okay. Hussein, if you're talking, we can't hear you. So just pop it in the chat, Hussein.
Yes, sir. I would like to say thank you for participating. It's been an honor.
Oh, sure. It's a pleasure.
Can I ask when is your birthday?
It's in October, the 23rd.
23rd.
Yes.
After you, buddy.
Thank you.
Hussein is a very talented artist. and he's very, 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 good in making art. He's awesome. He's great. So, any more questions? Ali, Zainab.
You're good.
So yeah. So you can visit Elliot's website. I just yeah. There is a question. There's a question.
I think, what is the most important principle you feel is most effective in making a great impression? The most important thing is to feel the energy of the artist in the drawing. That is the most important thing. To feel that it's got your hand in it. Okay, that's the most important thing. That will come in time, but that is what I think is the most important thing. It's got to feel like it's yours. It's got to feel the love in the drawing. It's got to feel an energy of a human being helped make that. As Mohammed was saying, you should feel very comfortable looking me up on Instagram. I got a lot of people that follow my work. What reflects my energy? Music, Zainab, music. And you can look me up anywhere and I will answer all your questions. Big thank you to everybody who paid attention and sat in. I loved it all. And you guys take care. It was great to meet all 60 of you. Oh, you have a question? Yes, Zainab, go ahead.
So before this event, I saw your sculptures, and I want to ask, how does animation translate? I mean, how do you feel making something solid and also making something that moves? How does that?
How does those things come together? Well, look, here's the thing. As I mentioned, right? Anytime you make a piece of art, well, anytime I make a piece of art, I need it to feel like it's mine. It needs to feel like I brought the energy to it, right? So if I'm making a drawing, it's going to feel like my energy is in it. And I try and take what I drew. I try and take the drawing and make it feel like a 3D object. Is this what you're asking me? That is what I wanted to do.
But I mean, when you're animating, things are very active and they're moving, but when you make a sculpture, it's solid, it doesn't move. So how do these two things, how do you express yourself differently in those two things? Why do you choose the specific medium for specific subject?
I don't know. Sometimes I feel like drawing, sometimes I want to make something. Sometimes I have a shape in my head that I will work well as a drawing, but sometimes I'm itching to see it in 3 dimensions. I don't have a process that's very technical. I'm very much spontaneous and just see what happens. And even when I make a sculpture or make a drawing, I almost never plan it. I just like have an urge to do it. That is where it comes from. It's not, I would say there's no technical answer. It is all spiritual and spontaneous.
And what about 3D modeling on the computer or 3D?
That is not my bag. That's something I've done none of. Not my bag. I wish I did.
So thank you very much, Elliot.
Yes, a pleasure.
Yeah, so we will end our meeting and let's say thank you to Elliot. Let's say thank you to Elliot for presenting the 2D animation principles of 2D animation workshop. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
so
I look forward to hearing from anyone who take care.
Together. Thank you,
Mohammed.
Elliot. And if you need anything from Elliot, don't hesitate to email him or contact him through his website.
That's fine. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
See, Mohammed, thank you.